welcome to the inaugural episode of The Retro Baker. I'm Laura Sawyer Messing and I am your retro baker, and today we're going to make a retro recipe that everyone should have in their back pocket: pumpkin bread. Pumpkin bread is one of the easiest things on the planet to make, and it's such a nice thing to give your friends and coworkers or to take to someone's home. It's just a really simple recipe, and there's just no reason to ever have to buy it from a bakery or to buy it to use a mix. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to mix our dry ingredients. So you're going to need 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. When it comes to baking, baking is chemistry. And so I am extremely consistent with my ingredients. To this, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. Please use table salt for this recipe. I haven't tested it with kosher salt or sea salt. So for measurement's sake, we want to use 2 teaspoons of table salt. We also want to add to that 2 teaspoons of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So we're just going to add that to our flour, and I'm going to use a pretty heavy duty whisk just to kind of blend it a little bit. The recipe as written says to use sifted all-purpose flour, but what they don't realize is that all commercial flour is sifted. So you don't have to sift it unless you're trying to mix ingredients together. And there's just really no reason for that. This is so simple. It's basically dump and bake. We're going to mix those together a little bit, and then we're going to start with our wet ingredients. I've got 4 eggs that are cracked into a bowl, and I'm just going to give them a little bit of a beat. My fork here. I'm going to add the eggs to a bowl where I have 3 cups of sugar, just regular old sugar. And then to that, 1 cup of vegetable oil. I know people get hung up on oils. Go ahead and use just commercial soybean oil or canola oil, because as I said earlier, baking is chemistry. And so we want consistency. We want our recipes to turn out the same every single time. And your fats matter. All right, we're going to add our oil to the sugar and our beaten eggs. To this, we're going to add 1 can of pumpkin. We're just going to whisk that in here. All right. Before I forget, we want to add the thing that makes pumpkin bread delicious, our warming spices. Here in the United States, we have gotten out of control with pumpkin spice, and that's mainly because they put way too much nutmeg in. I love nutmeg, and we use nutmeg in this recipe, but to overdo it really isn't good. You're looking for balance, and pumpkin in and of itself doesn't have a ton of flavor. So we're going to add these spices. We've got 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of ground allspice, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. So we're just going to add that to our mixture. Grab a fork and mix that in. Okay, we're going to add our dry ingredients to our wet mixture, and we're going to alternate it with 2/3 of a cup of water. I've got a silicone trivet under my bowl, and I find that when I'm hand mixing, that really helps keep the bowl from sliding. They're inexpensive. You can find them most anywhere. And this part will require just a little bit of elbow grease, but it goes pretty quick. This particular recipe, it's very wet. It's like a cake batter, sort of. You want to make sure that when you're using a whisk that you get all the way to the bottom and around the edges, just to make sure you incorporate all your ingredients well. Now, I like to bake these in foil baking pans, not because of the cleanup, but because if you give them away, a lot of the times they come with these little lids and you can just put the lid on and give them to friends and family, or I wrap them tightly and put them in the freezer with the lids on. I just think it's a good option. It makes 3 really even loaves. You are going to want to put your foil pans on a baking sheet. You'll thank me later when you're not trying to fumble around with all of these unwieldy pans of pumpkin bread, getting them into your oven. These will bake for 1 hour. Oops, I am making a mess. But you're not a good baker unless you make a little bit of a mess, so come on. Get my scraper. Get them as evenly as possible. You can always even them out a little bit if you find that one is too full, but get them as close as possible. I think we did pretty good there. I'm gonna take damp paper towel, and any of this stuff that I got on the baking sheet, I'm gonna go ahead and wipe that off because you don't want that burning in the oven. I'm also gonna wipe off the edges of this loaf pan because the same thing will happen. So I like to give them a little shake and a little tap just to make sure they're level. And I'm gonna pop these in the oven. Now we're gonna preheat our oven to 350 degrees. Oops. All right. All right, our timer just went off. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm gonna let these cool on the baking sheet for about 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna pop them out of their bread pans and let them finish cooling on a baking rack. I know a lot of places have things on pumpkin bread like glaze and nuts. I'm kind of a pumpkin bread purist. I like it just plain without anything. I like to put a little unsalted butter on top because it's delicious, but you can do whatever you want. Let's see what we've got. Should have put a trivet under this. That is beautiful. And you know, it really was easy. This is not difficult. And it's just so much better than what you would buy any place. So, you know, why not make some pumpkin bread today? You can do it, it's so easy, and you'll be glad you did. Plus, you get 3 loaves out of 1 recipe. I'm Laura Sawyer Messing, the Retro Baker. Thank you so much for stopping by and baking with me. And remember, it doesn't have to be complicated to be delicious.